Okay, so this is LP2. So this is kind of, I thought this would be useful for you guys. It's our target customer characteristics. What's not in there is the size of customer, but I would say really you've got to be looking at 5 million transport spend or more. Probably 5 to 50 is a sweet spot. So medium to large shippers, international, normally with more than one site as well. So you've got the complexity of multi-site. That's always good because you'll get different sites doing their own thing and having their own ways of working, particularly if there's an acquisition been involved, there are different processes. And you can, with one system, you can provide standards and a standard way of working. We work in many sectors. So these are some of our logos. Some of these companies you'll recognize. Others maybe a little German, but yeah, we've got Suez in there. We've got Siemens, Liebherr, Metro, which is also the macro case study, which I'm going to show later on. We've got Bosch, you know, so all the big German brands are using the software. Miele, plus more. Rewe is probably one of the biggest supermarkets in Germany. Verth is like a DIY shop, retailer. Target is the flooring company, ThyssenKrupp. So you get the mix. So there's quite a range of different industries there that we're working in. We do work with some logistics companies. So Ellis here is a 4PL business, and they use our software to process all of their Dutch company, using our software to do all of their freight control. Renus use our software for invoice control, so managing all their carrier invoices. So this is just describing the supply chain the process. So typically the TMS supply chain extends from inbound, from purchasing, right through to outbound, and including outbound for delivery to the customer. It touches all of these kind of departments. So you've got your purchasing teams, you've got your order receipt teams, packing, outbound dispatch, tracking, billing, and invoicing. And our system follows that process. So we've got modules that deal with all of these kind of elements. So we've got ERP integrations. Obviously, one of the values of a TMS is removing that need to manually upload or key in data. So integrating with the ERP ensures that consistency of data. We've then got supplier portal, enabling real-time visibility, tracking and visibility. We can provide the scanning and receipt of goods, a confirmation of receipt. And then from the outbound side, we deal with order line level data, converting that order line into packs and into shipments. So we can advise kind of these products need to be packed into this carton. We can produce the carrier label for that carton or that consignment. We can consolidate cartons on a consignment virtually. And then we can manage the whole carrier receiving process. So there's booking, gate scheduler to book in carrier delivery collections to a collection slot, a warehouse loading kind of bay structure, which then helps optimize the loading process. Then we've got that whole confirmation of dispatch, proof of delivery process, tracking, and then through to invoicing from the carrier. So it's kind of like the full end-to-end process. So this is Rewe, the supermarket in Germany. They describe that they're sending over 500,000 consignments across 800 suppliers, and that's all managed through our system, dealing with all of the different tariff calculations. Every surcharge, every logic is captured. And that was a surprise, you know, they didn't expect to be able to do that through the system. So typically problem solved. We remove the need for spreadsheets. So often the spreadsheets all over the logistics operation, doesn't matter what WMS you're using or what ERP, you'll find somebody's got a dispatch spreadsheet which shows what time the loads are being dispatched. Or they've got an invoicing spreadsheet where they've got captured all of their consignments and they've got a rate next to it. It automates that manual process as well. So that whole end-to-end process where you're taking bits of data from one system and then applying it to a spreadsheet or applying it to a website to capture information, all of that data is controlled, consistent, and compliant. The system allocates the optimum carrier. So you can base rule-based, or you can base it on a criteria: cheapest carrier, quickest carrier. Any of those suggestions can be made. Integrates external carrier workflow. So this is ERP deals with internal process. As soon as anything goes outside of the company, it gets lost. The TMS is that ERP for external processes. So we integrate in many cases with a lot of external carriers, so that the whole process is fully end-to-end, and all of that reduces kind of emails and phone calls. We calculate 100% of carrier tariffs. So that means that we can produce an invoice report for a carrier that then the carrier invoices against, or we can self-bill, or we can match invoices. So there's different ways of dealing with different carrier requirements. It supports any tariff, web auction, or freight tendering functionality. So not everything is rateable. So you might end up with a new lane or a new shipment or a new location, and you need to get a rate for that location or that service, and you can simply, with a click of a button, send that to a web auction to a group of carriers and ask them to respond. And we can also run complete freight tenders as well. So the system is capable of taking the data for a period of time, for a cross-section of the data, turning that into a tender, and then emailing carriers to basically provide their rates in a format from the system, which can then be uploaded and compared with different scenarios. So you could do a comparison of the top 3 carriers, or you could do a comparison of all the carriers, and it will give you different results on the back of that. Okay. Obviously, what the system delivers with all of that is time saving. So that enables people to invest their time in continuous improvement rather than dealing with the day-to-day. It delivers cost saving, which means the system is always return on investment. There's always a positive result for that, because it reduces time and improves the company's ability to generate transport cost savings as well, and improve service. So through the visibility that the system provides, through that consistent data, then it means that there's reduced errors, and there's a reduced need for special deliveries on the back of that, or expedited deliveries. Make sense so far?
It does, yeah. I think the thing for me, Tim, is, I mean, when it's nice to have everything, but people tend to sort of be solving one problem when they start and then grow into the others.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I suppose you sort of implement the whole product, but you switch on models because they use different bits of data and they're feeding back to different systems. And I suppose that's what, you're covering everything, but actually there's usually a sequence or a reason or something like that to see where you start and where you end up, I suppose.
That's true. I think we've got one opportunity that the guys are looking at in Germany at the moment, and the company just want the gate scheduler.
Yeah.
So they just want to manage their inbound flow of goods. So that could be a starting point, for example.
Yeah.
Another one could be the invoice calculations. So processing invoices, accurate financial accruals at the end of the month in a timely manner.
I think that front end stuff is probably, because actually if you've got large scale systems and associated processes, what you're looking for is a level of simplification, isn't it?
Exactly.
And ease of engagement with the user.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm going into a business tomorrow and they've got their own fleet and they do both B2B and B2C, and they do, pallets, vehicles, shop delivery, home delivery. Is that covering everything for them? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say if it was own fleet,
Yes.
they would probably use a FAO as well. So that's where that would come in.
Okay.
If it was all carrier, so if they were shipping product through multiple carriers, because they have some parcel shipments, they have some pallet shipments, and they have some full loads and part loads, then they could use this.
Okay, brilliant. That's
ocean and air freight as well. So if I start with,
thank you. Okay,
I'll start with some of the. Okay. So hopefully you can see this.
Yeah.
So this is what our web portals look like. We've got the menus down the side, and we've got different menus for different things. So we've got gate scheduler, which is your loading bays. You've got billing portals. This is packaging management elements, so pallet management, stillages, cages, that kind of thing. LPO is kind of like the transport planning or shipment allocation element. You've got an order portal, and so on, and so tracking. And this, we're going to focus on web publishing. And we've got some examples on here of kind of like the tracking element. So this is kind of like available to customer who's shipping goods on a carrier. The carrier doesn't have their own tracking. It's a haulier, and he is going to use a QR code to track that a product's been received and to capture that proof of delivery.
Yeah.
So he's turned up, and maybe he's got a mobile, and he says, "This is my QR code." So in that, there's a shipment document produced. So this is Suez, which is quite a good example. When making the delivery, so when making the pickup, they'll scan this one on the left. When they make the delivery, they'll scan this one on the right. So if you've got a mobile phone there, you can scan that one on the right, and you can try this if you want, and it will show you, it will talk you through the POD process. Anyone got their phone handy?
Yeah, I'm going through the process now, Tim.
Oh, cool. So you should be able to, it should say, it should give you some instructions, which are quite self-explanatory.
Yeah.
And then you've got to sign and take a photo.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wait. Right. Yeah.
And then once you've done that and completed it,
Yeah.
okay, then it will then appear in the system immediately. So if I go to the what date are we today? 27th of the 3rd, so it's not quite arrived yet.
Just trying to see how I take a photo.
I'll just
Yeah.
documents, shipments. All right, so you should have, oh, there we go. Is this, there you go.
Yeah. Delivered at Use and Logistics. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there'll be a map to say, which will show where you are as well. So
Yeah,
it properly sort of tracks the location of that delivery where that's been made.
Yeah,
so
there
this
you
is
go.
where,
Look, there I am.
yeah,
In Mandeville Close.
and it'll have the signature as well on there as well. So that technology. So that's basically what I've done is it's downloaded an app to your phone.
Yeah.
You processed it and then it's deleted the app from your phone. So that's technically how it works, but it means that there is a proof of delivery process for any carrier who's got a mobile phone.
Yeah. That's good.
And you can use that as proof of collection or proof of delivery, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, what you're doing with it. Yeah.
And then the freight auction bit, which is we talked about a little while ago. I'm just going to find an example with a good quantity. So this is an example of that. So again, we've got a shipment within the system. It's been sent out to a number of carriers, and these are the rates that have come back from those carriers. So it sends them an email. They get the chance then to ping back a response to that email to win, whether they win the tender or not. And you can sort of see and select your carrier based on those responses.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's kind of a rating there behind them as well. So you can have ratings for your carriers and all of that kind of good stuff.
It's good.
So that's kind of covered off these boxes. Not covered web tenders in that. I may need to just open another portal for that. Basically, within, again, another portal, web tendering portal, you'd set up your tender. You invite your carriers, and you can invite any number of carriers to this. You can add them, and you can basically have multiple rounds within the tender, so you can build those rounds in. You can send them a template to complete, and you can see here that they've all completed that tender.
Yeah.
And you can sort of get an overview of the results by example, by carrier, and then cherry picking the best carrier. So this gives you a sort of total value for each one. And then, yeah, the cherry pick is obviously the best of all of them.
Yeah.
So again, and you can do that for any mode of transport. This is an ocean one, so we have it'll have a bit of complexity in there. So if I look at the open the template, you'll see what's involved with that. So there's a rate sheet, a spreadsheet behind, so you've got all your different origin charges, destination charges, demurrage, sea freight, and on carriage. So in this particular case, but you can basically design that how you want.
I mean, it's showing me it's actually, I mean, it's rich, isn't it? So large and complex is what you're hunting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Multiple teams, multiple locations, multiple geographies. You know, The more of that you've got, I presume it sucks data from other systems or databases.
I was just about to ask that because you've got Maersk and stuff like that. So there's an integration there or something, is there?
In this one, you just need an email address for that carrier. So because this is a tender, that'll be going to somebody in their sales team. So I'm wondering whether the email address is anywhere on there, but there's a forwarded documents.
In a sense, it doesn't really matter on here because it's just
Yeah.
the sort of data of the output that you're
Yeah.
out. So
Yeah, but we also have reports. So, for example, I think we've got that ocean one set up as a report. I think it's this one here. So again, we have capability within the software to then, show that data by lane.
Yeah.
But there is some incredible functionality with it. So, you can.
Depends who you're talking to, doesn't it?
You can show them. Yeah.
If you're talking to a user, they're looking at usability rather than, I mean, obviously they want functionality, but they're quite happy to learn how to use it if the functionality is sort of there and unique, isn't it?
Yeah.
So can that data be exported back to another system?
It can. So this is done so we've got our LP2 system, and then we've got another system called Scala, which is a mirror database.
Yeah.
And Scala is just this comparison is done in Scala. But once you've made your choice of carriers, you can basically put that back into LP2 and say, right, these are the carriers I want to choose for those lanes, or these are my shortlisted. So if you said, right, well, actually, I only want to use MSC for this because they're predominantly the main carrier, you might say, well, I'll forego the additional 20 grand of saving because I want an easy life and I'm going to just use one carrier so I can.
Yeah.
I've got one throat to chokes.
Yeah.
Coin a phrase, and you can go from there. So, you might not want to implement all of the carriers that respond to a tender.
Yeah.
You might just want the ones that you decide to shortlist. So that's kind of like the tendering portal side of it. We also have portals for the users. And again, I've got loads of menu options, but this is entirely configurable by user. So you wouldn't have as many menus as that. You would literally have the ones that were relevant for you.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like a user's view of all the shipments. So this is a shipment view, and this is just and it's a direct output of what is in the system.
Yeah.
And each of these views can be a query. So a query can be written to create a subset of that.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a haulier, so I've got another view to do it. I've got another view here, which is a haulier's kind of view, which is timed out typically. But if I log in as a haulier, so this is a haulier login, and the haulier's KGS, JS, they'll only see their shipments and their invoices and their activity. So it gives them a complete subset of. So you can see there. These are all KGS, JS shipments.
Yeah.
There's the haulier. And this view is completely configurable as well. So you can filter, or you can cut down the number of fields. You can reposition the fields. You can rename them. You can do all of that. We have a billing portal, which I'd mentioned before, which is kind of like where you can view an invoice. So you can imagine with a haulier, if you've got a process whereby you're invoicing weekly, all of their jobs for that week would appear in here, and it would give them a total invoice report, and they would check each job. They can chat, so they can send a message to the planner to say there was 2 hours demurrage on that which you've missed, and then they will request that through a chat. And then that will appear in the main system. So it's, yeah, there you go, he's got 50. I've done one earlier, so that will then sit in the system until somebody responds to that. We've got gate scheduler, so this is kind of, in fact, let me go back into the other one. Just time out if I'm not in it all the time.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So again, with a haulier, you may only want, I think it's because I've logged in under someone else, but it's fine. With a haulier, you may only want certain menus. And again, you can limit the haulier to just have the menus that are relevant to them, whereas the main user might want everything on there. And a gate scheduler is just your view of the docs, so you can book. Oh, there you go. You can basically book a slot for delivery. So if I'm, and as a user, as a shipper, I would see all of my different carriers booked into this kind of view, and I'd be able to manage my unloading resource or my loading resource around that.
Okay, yeah.
That makes sense.
It does, yeah.
So that's the sort of web end of the system. The back end, looks like this. So these are the menus on the side, which are sort of similar to the menus on the website, but just a kind of menu tree. And this is just a query. So I've run that query there, shipments within current period, which just gives me a list of all the shipments that are open. And here we've got various shipments. You can see this is color coded by country of destination. So, and or whether there's a carrier selected or not. So I've got an ocean freight shipment here from Newport to Sydney. I've got a shipment to Norway, and I've got a UK full load shipment, 10,000 gross weight, 26 pallets. So these are all kind of the different examples. There's an air freight shipment if we wanted to show that as well. So if I go to my UK domestic shipment and double click, it takes you into the shipment view. And this is really into the back end now. So,
Yeah.
but this is all of the detail, again, entirely configurable screen. So all of these menu options and things, you can configure them to what some people aren't interested in, kind of like net weight. You might just want the number of pallets and the gross weight on here. We've got an origin, we've got a destination, and I've got that option here of a forwarder here. I've got the vehicle specification, so it's an Arctic required for that shipment. And you can set rules in the system to work that out. If I select this, it'll give me a forwarder, what we call a forwarder proposal. So I've gone into the database, I've gone through all the tariffs that are set up, and it's given me these options. So I can allocate this to a haulier. So I'm going to allocate it to KGS, accept that, yeah. And it's added that in then to the forwarder menu. And that's kind of the start of the process when you're allocating carriers to it, to shipments, and it can be done automatically. So you don't have to manually process shipments, but it's a way of showing the mechanics of the system, if you like.
Yeah.
Which is what I was about to ask. I mean, you lifted the bonnet to show us quite a lot. How much of it is is sort of potentially automated versus, you know, manual when you're doing a decent volume?
Yeah, so and again, it's configurable by customer, so in their process. So if they are dealing with, you know, thousands of parcel consignments a day, you'd want it all automated. So you'd literally just process it. If they're dealing with full loads, and they may be looking at, you know, I'm pick a number, 20 full loads a day, they might want to go through and allocate those. They might have rules, and you can set them up that allows certain hauliers to have certain volumes.
Yeah.
Or they might want to go through them and allocate them in this way. So we have companies that do both.
And do you support them with that on as a consultative element in the setup?
Yeah. When we set this up, we assign a consultant to it.
Okay.
To set it up with the customer and make sure they're fully trained with super user with all of the knowledge that they need.
Yeah.
But I'm showing you this kind of because to give you an idea of
No,
the
I
detail.
understand.
Yeah.
You have to lift the bonnet. You have to lift the bonnet because you can't. If not, you can't see it, can you?
Yeah. And the tariffs are all managed within the system. So I've got what we have a structure here. You can see we've got tariffs. Underneath that, we've got agreements, and then we've got charges. So you can have different agreements for different carriers, and then different charge structures for different agreements.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
So if I go into an agreement and I find my Maersk agreement, so that's this one here, Maersk.
Yeah.
It gives you an idea here of the complexity of the tariff structure. So within this agreement, you've got all of these elements which are then calculated for each shipment based on the requirement. So there would be, this agreement is for carrier Maersk, that's the forwarder name. The description is Maersk Southampton to Sydney. So you'd have literally one of these agreements for every ocean lane that you have. And here you can specify whether it's a 20-foot or 40-foot container. And you've got different charges based on that. And all of the charges sit behind each of these lines represents a charge. In other cases, we have a tariff that sits behind it. So my Norwegian shipment, again, I can process that and it will calculate the best cost shipment. So I've got DAXA, I've got DSV, I've got two options for DSV. So my DAXA one, if I calculate that, accept that. If I go into my agreement for DAXA, I can show you a more sort of generic tariff. That one. So again, with this tariff, we've got a standard tariff. We've also got a fuel surcharge on there as well, which is applied. I'm going to just open up this tariff, and you can see here I've got a rate matrix for that by zone. So you can set the zones up, you can set all the rates up, all configurable. And I've done this, so you don't have to be a technical genius to do it. You know, you just need like a little bit of analytical expertise. But it's not, you know, if I can do it, then it doesn't require a programmer. With all of these different options, but you've got different currencies.
Yeah.
All of that is captured within the system. So is that okay as a sort of?
Yeah, I mean, it gives a good flavour of what the system sort of is and does, sort of thing, and how it does it. So that's pretty.
Well, it's a very capable system ultimately, and you know, and I think, I mean, it covers a lot of what people want from a, you know, ultimately from a full system. Yeah.
This is kind of the structure. So this gives a bit. I won't go into this in any detail other than to say there are kind of 3 elements to the system behind. I've talked about LP2 is the main operational system. Scala's the simulation. SP2 is reporting. We've got web portals that then feed off that do different functions. So and enable that usability by the customer. These are kind of what I would say the value within the system in the USPs. We talk about omni-tariffable, highly functional. So it's end to end covering kind of all elements, and then highly flexible, that ability to tailor. I have got 2 use cases which are quite interesting. One is the macro case study, which I think I've talked about before. But this is like so this is inbound supplier portal for inbound logistics to their Czech distribution center. So there's 800 suppliers on the platform, all with their own portal, and they all get a view of their own orders. So they would individually, each supplier would see only their orders. They can use that to then drill down into what SKUs are being shipped. They can consolidate them into packs or to handling units, and they can ship them, and they can produce this paperwork with a barcode and a QR code on. The carrier or the supplier then books into a gate scheduler, so they'll book a slot for delivery into Czech Republic site, and they can just basically edit that and pops a menu up that says fill your details in, add any documents that you want. The driver then collects, and then they do the tracking bit that we've seen. So they'll do a proof of collection, and they'll then track the goods through to delivery. That gives a live tracking. There's a kiosk. Apologies for the fact that this is in German, or might even be in Czech, but there is obviously English option there, and they would scan that QR code to scan delivery in. If he's on time, he's directed to a loading bay. If he's late, he's directed to a parking day. And then we've got a dynamic scheduler, which...
So they just bought it, Mac just bought it for this DC, did they, Tim?
Yeah.
Because for whatever range it's stocked and everything else like that, to solve that particular problem.
Yeah.
And what system do they have that you plugged into? Do you know that?
I think that they're using SAP. I'm not 100% sure, but I can find out.
That sort of feeling. That's why I was going to ask that, but it had that sort of feeling.
And then these are the benefits. So obviously that inbound visibility is a big driver. And then Suez is another. I've included this because it's a bit more of a traditional transport management scenario. They've got 90 carriers, 600 loads per day from various recycling centres, bringing them to their waste processing plants. Some of it goes export as well. Specialist vehicles. So they've got certain carriers with certain vehicle types, SAP integration. They're using LP2, as you've seen, to allocate that work to carriers. Only about 55% of their loads are actually tariffed. The rest is done through web auctions, which is interesting. And then I think it's because it's more random locations or volume, and then they use gate scheduler to book in the deliveries. And all of the carrier invoicing is done in the back end. They went from 19 heads to 4 by introducing this software. But that's kind of whistle stop tour, really. So
good. I mean, obviously I'm going to have to go, but I'll let you guys run on. I mean, I suppose it's given me a really good flavour of who you're trying to type of organisation who's going to buy this.